That's a forehead concealment device.
As we age, our foreheads do get much larger. Hair runs to the back. First, I want to say, next week we got Veterans Day coming up, so I want to say thank you again for your service. I think a lot of people forget that you did serve
For sure.
some time. So,
Appreciate that.
speaking of, going back to your time with that, I know we've asked you in the past, but, since it is coming up, I figure I'd ask you more. You were training MMA while you were still with the Army National Guard, right?
Yeah. So I started training MMA mixed martial arts my senior year of high school, and then shortly after graduating from high school, I immediately left for the Army. I literally graduated on a Saturday, and I was on a plane to basic training come Monday. But once I got in the military, there was there's different options to kind of practice what could be considered mixed martial arts as far as combative training and that kind of stuff. And since I already had a love or a passion for that kind of stuff, I just kind of gravitated naturally towards combative training and that kind of thing. So I was able to work my way from level 1 instructor all the way up to level 4 instructor, and also compete on the Army combative team for a couple of years as well.
And you deployed into Operation Iraqi Freedom?
Yeah. So 2007 to 2008, I was deployed for Operation Iraqi Freedom.
What was your typical occupation? You don't have to talk about Iraqi Freedom, but what were you doing while you were enlisted?
So I was very fortunate to be assigned to a medical group during my time overseas. So it was different, medical operation that we were doing while we were there. It was just, it's been a pretty fortunate time in my life, just kind of be able to be around fellow comrades and that kind of thing. You just kind of share that experience and be able to be the best help that we can to others during our time there.
While you were training, you said you could either take combative training, but you were doing it because it was something you loved. Did you ever envision at that time when you were doing that someday your career would be full-time MMA?
No, not at all. I thought I was in the Army for 20 years. I definitely had a passion for it. Definitely wish I had an opportunity to ever compete for it full-time. But it was one of those things that I kept submerging myself into it more and more. So it was doing tournaments on base for Army combatives and doing the combative team that we meet up twice a year for it. And I was like, all right, let me try my hand at amateur fighting. Let me try my hand at pro fighting. So it was just one of those things that I kept progressing at time at the time. And as I excelled at it, I was like, oh, cool, let me take this to the next level. Even when I came back from that deployment, I was fortunate enough to go to school at Southern Illinois University, which is in Edwardsville, Illinois. And just in the town next door was Granite City, Illinois. And during that time, Matt Hughes, Mark Fiore, and Robbie Lauder had opened up his squad. And during that time, I was like, oh, sweet, there's an MMA gym right up the street. So as a 19, 20-year-old kid, I walked in there to kind of get some training with those guys just to stay consistent. And it ended up being a huge blessing for me, being able to test myself with guys like Robbie Lauder, Matt Hughes, consistent basis. It definitely set the bar high for what I could attain and let me know it was attainable.
And definitely, you think of it as foreshadowing. If you're starting your career and and those are the level of guys that you were training with and that you had access to, it certainly bodes well to why your experience and why your longevity in this sport has been there.
Yeah, for sure. I've definitely been fortunate. During the school year, I'll spend time down at Granite City training with Matt Hughes and Robbie Lawler. And then during the summer break, fall break, winter break, that kind of stuff, I head back up to Chicago and I'll be training with Miguel Torres. And if you know anything about Miguel Torres and Matt Hughes, those are two completely different fight styles. Matt Hughes is all about taking the fight to the ground, top pressure, ground and pound, and that kind of stuff. And Miguel is a very relentless striker who has good jiu-jitsu, so he's able to fight off his back pretty well. So having a combination of those two guys early on, kind of gave me a comfort in fighting, letting me know, oh, cool, regardless of where the fight goes, I'm okay. I'll fight from my back. I'll fight from the top position. I'll fight on my feet. I'll just fight wherever the fight goes. I'm happy about it. I'm comfortable with it. I'm just excited to go out there and fight.
Well, it certainly kind of gives insight, too. And I think when people think of your fight style, they don't think of it as just being one particular thing. They don't think, oh, well, he's just a striker, or, oh, hey, he's going to try to do this. Because it seems like, even for when you started, you wanted to kind of have multiple areas where you would be strong in. Did you feel like that time being able to work with guys that were so different, that kind of helped set you up to have a style that was, easy to kind of flow in no particular area?
Yeah, during that time, I didn't foresee it as being able to kind of set my style up, so to speak. Back then, when it came to jiu-jitsu and MMA, we didn't have as much access to the internet and the videos that we have now. Yeah. Back then, we'd be fortunate to have one black belt on the mat. Nowadays, you have 20 black belts on the mat. So back then, when you were training mixed martial arts, jiu-jitsu, that kind of thing, people had their own specific games that they developed, which is something that doesn't necessarily, you don't see it too much in today's games just because of how much access we have to information and that kind of of thing. I mean, a couple years ago in jiu-jitsu, for example, the whole idea of leg loss and heel hooks just became like, that's what everyone was doing all of a sudden. Where 10 years ago, if you were a guy in the gym that was going for a heel hook, you're considered to be like the quote-unquote a-hole. Like no one wanted to train with you because you can tear someone's knee apart kind of thing. But now it's like that's where the game goes kind of thing. So I'm very fortunate to be able to like train against guys like Matt Hughes and Miguel Torres early on to kind of like develop a good base for what I want my mixed martial arts career to be.
You know, and you mentioned, you know, you're not an old guy by any means, but you've been in it for a long time. But you mentioned now when guys go to the gym and they want to train at the gym, there's the wealth of talent and the bodies that they can go against is so different from when you started. Do you ever tell the young guys starting up like, man, you guys got it good? Like, you know, we could never used to get this sort of training. And like you said, it's not like you could pull up the tape. You can't pull up the videos on YouTube like you can do it now. Back then, you know, you didn't have that access. Do you ever sort of like tease and remind the youngsters coming up how good that they have it?
Yeah, I hate to admit it, but that moment where it's like, oh, back in my day, that's coming out a little bit more than I would like it to now as time goes on. But I'm grateful for it. I mean, I'm in a very unique position that like there is so much information out there that like a lot of the young fighters can gravitate towards to get their answers. To get their questions answered, so to speak. But nothing tops actual real life experience or whatever. So when I'm giving advice, when I'm teaching guys, when I'm coaching guys, whatever else it may be, I coach from a very unique perspective. I coach from this perspective of like, hey, look, this is where I fell short. This is where I could have done better. This is what I could have done differently. And I'm able to use like real life experiences to help hopefully these guys learn from my mistakes and not reinvent the wheel, so to speak. Like, hell, my last fight, never did I think in a clinch position I'll get hit with a spinning back elbow, but it definitely knocked the sense out of me. But even now in training, like that's something I'm definitely implementing in my training where it's like I'm showing guys different looks and different things that could happen in certain positions where you would tend to get complacent or settle in like, oh, cool, I got to hold this guy. There's no danger now. Like I'm keeping guys accountable in those positions now based on the experiences that I've had throughout my fighting career.
And I'm glad you brought that up. You know, that was actually going to be my next question. You know, your last fight against Morales, so it didn't go the way you wanted, but were there things that you could take away from that? You know, there's usually always something that you could learn from it, but sometimes it's just a bad day at the office. You know, when you look at that one, was there something that you were able to take away from that?
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely some things that he did really, really well on fight night, but overall for me, the biggest thing was keeping that consistency going. Like I know I'm able to fight better than what I showed that night. He had me a better man that night and executed well. Like he did a good job with the spinning elbow. Once the fight got to the ground, he did a good job of not letting me kind of control him and then, like get my whiz back, so to speak. He just kept on picking his shots and implementing damage from top position, which led to a TKO eventually. But overall, like for me, it was just like keeping the consistency going. Like, yeah, I fell short in this day, but that doesn't erase the months of work that I did prior to that. I need to keep that consistency going on into the next fight, and that's fortunately what I did leading up to this fight. I mean, I didn't take much time feeling sorry for myself at home, like, oh, boo-hoo, poor me, I lost the fight. I was like, man, that sucks. I hate that feeling. Let's go ahead and erase this loss, kind of speak. We're getting back on track. So I was having conversations with the coaches as far as like when my next opportunity may be and that kind of thing. And I was honestly thinking that like, all right, maybe the only way I fight in 2024 is if someone gets injured and pulls out last minute and I'm a late replacement. So when it's obviously presented itself to be a main event on 6 weeks notice, I'm like, oh yeah, that's plenty of time. Let's do it. That's plenty of time to get the training in, get comfortable, and go out there and be successful.
And I know you're happy to get a main event, but man, here they are again throwing you this up-and-coming killer, you know? Like, I mean, what are your initial thoughts on him? Have you been able to watch him? I mean, he's only been in the UFC. I think he had the Contender Series and maybe 2-3 other fights after that. Were you able to kind of see some tape on him? And what are your thoughts on him?
Yeah, it's been impressive thus far. I mean, he has some pretty good kickboxing matches that I've been able to see. Did well in his MMA career. I'm like, though he's a young guy in UFC, the guy has 26 professional MMA fights on his belt. So he's definitely a veteran in this sport in particular, as far as like the skill sets brings to the table. And knowing that the camp that he trains at and his background, I know he's no slouch. I know though he's predominantly a striker, I know he's going to have pretty good wrestling defense, ground game, and things like that as well. So I know I have a tough task ahead of me, and I can't wait to go out there and deliver.
I know he looks at you, he sees that top 15 ranking or that ranking next to your name, you know, so I could see where he sees this and he's like, okay, I know what I get with this win. What do you get with the win over him?
Notoriety. At this point, it's all about like making yourself, letting it be known that you still stand to be a force in the division, so to speak. And I don't do that by fighting guys that I know I can beat. I'll do that by going out there and challenging myself against whomever the UFC throws at me. And this is yet again another example of that. Like I can very easily like, hey, do you guys have any 30-year-olds, 40-year-olds that can fight right now. Like, I don't want to fight another up-and-coming killer. But I know that's not what's going to make me happy in a day. I know I want to challenge myself. And right now, being at the place I'm at physically, mentally, emotionally, I know I can still compete in the best guys in the world. And I would honestly feel bad for myself if I were to kind of sandbag and cut myself short by taking an opponent that I know I can beat easily.
Yeah. Well, that kind of, one of the questions I was going to say is, if you get the win on Saturday, I mean, do you immediately start looking at names up above you and try to call somebody, or are there rematches that maybe make sense that you want to maybe revisit?
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely some rematches on the table that I would definitely want to revisit, but ultimately it's Saturday night first. And then, like, depending on what happens in the division. I mean, we've seen at the light heavyweight division that the guy all the way up to number 8 got a title shot, which is unheard of in a lot of other things, and many people had a lot of different things to say. But in this sport, you just never know how things are going to turn and where things are going to go. For me, it's just more so going out there, getting back on the winning side of things, doing it in impressive fashion, and then being ready for the opportunities to present itself down the road.
Awesome. Well, you kind of almost answered there. Your keys to the victory. What needs to happen on Saturday to make sure that you do get your arm raised?
The biggest thing is being present. I know these guys is very dangerous everywhere else. I can't afford to be complacent at any moment in this fight. I know I'm able to go out there and out-strike, out-wrestle, out-grapple. I can do whatever it takes to get the job done. For me, it's just all about being present and executing at this point.
And Neil, thank you for taking the time. Just to circle back a little bit with what you were talking about with Kenny, just how we all learn from these losses. Difference is, ours aren't public. But how great is it that you're able to just stay grounded after such a long time? And how is that you can have that mindset? Because from Miguel Torres, WEC champion, Hughes, Hall of Famer, champion,
sure.
all the way to now, to stay grounded like that. What are the secrets to that? To not let it get to your head and be on another poster and be just happy with the opportunities and still be a smile on your face at all.
Yeah, man, even going back to my Army days, it's like it's a gift and a curse. I mean, I remember one of the best songs that was out when I was in the military was like the song called American Soldier. And there was a line in that song that specifically said, I can't call in sick on Monday because the weekend's been too rough. And I think about the course of my career, it's been literally just that. There's been plenty of days that I'm just like, fuck, man, I'm really struggling today. Like, I don't know how to get through this, or have this going, or have that going on. And I have two options. I can sit there and wallow in it and be like, oh, poor me, I can't make it through. Or I can, like, suck it up and drive forward. And for the most part, I've done that. And for the most part, it's worked out better for me. And I can't help but, like, rely on that attitude. I mean, right now, if you look at what's going on in my personal life over the last 2 years, my professional life the last 2 years, like, you would think that's, like, damn, dude, there's a lot on his plate. Maybe you should slow down. Why is he smiling? Why is he still enjoying life right now? It's like, I have no other option. It's either I go and feel sorry for myself somewhere, or I say, like, all right, cool. These are the hands I'm dealt in life. I'm going to play them best as possible. I'm going to still find a way to be successful.
100%. Can you disclose anything? Do you want to share anything these 2 years that?
Oh, I mean, it's no like, it's not like it's what is it? It's not a secret at this point. I'm going through a very difficult divorce process. Had a very lengthy custody battle to be able to be present in my kid's life and that kind of thing. So when you're balancing all of that, it's a very difficult place to find yourself. Where it's like you're going to court week after week, month after month to try to like fight, be present in your kids' lives, and on top of that, you have to show and be a professional fighter at the same time. Even once you've rewarded 50-50 custody in your kids, and you're having to show up, be like, cool, I have to be dad. I can't fall short of being dad. I have to show be the most present, the most active, the most best dad I could possibly be. But at the same time, I have to show him be the best fighter I can be as well. So it's like trying to juggle that balance where it's like I have sparring scheduled on a certain time and a certain day, and it's like, all right, your kid's sick. Well, how do you manage sparring and your kid being sick in the same day? It's like, well, I'm dad. I'm gonna figure it out. So like being able to like balance all that and still find the joy in it, still appreciate it, still find the gratitude in it. I'm just grateful for it all. I'm very fortunate to be here.
Man, that's amazing. Thank you for sharing that. That was beautiful to all the people struggling. And say, like, man, let me use my man Neil as someone to inspire me.
For sure. I mean, like, even right now when I look at it, like, he brought the fact that it's Veterans Day weekend. I mean, I know what I'm going through is a very difficult task, but I'm not the only one going through it. There are plenty other servicemen and other people that are dealing with a lot of their own baggage, and they're still expected to show up for others who need them or whatever. And being given this opportunity, being given this platform, I'd be ashamed of myself to, like, not show up the best as I could, not for myself, but as encouragement to others as well. Like, my kids are going to have difficult days ahead of them, and for me to, like, be the guy that kind of falls back, like, oh, life is too tough, I'm going to sit this one out. Like, no, I've never been that person. That's never been a part of me. I've always showed up and rise to the occasion. I see this weekend being no different.
No, not at all. And that's obviously you guys are cut from a special cloth. You have to exercise these demons on ESPN Plus for 25 minutes. My goodness. Closing for me, last question, Is there any new tricks that we can look forward to this weekend? Because you've been there, done that, been on the poster, been main event. You know what it's like. But how do you keep things fresh?
Yeah, so for me, even when it comes to film, like I'm spending less and less time watching my opponent's film and more time watching my own film from every single fight, and maybe to like take away like, all right, cool, how did so and so beat me? Like, I mean, literally, up until a couple fights ago, I can literally go back and look at fights like Lorenz Larkin, Ponzinibbio, who was the other one? Mike Chiesa, in particular. I like it, those three guys in particular, and the particular things they've done in those fights, and I can actually point out like, oh, cool. If I were to fight me this way, this is how it would come out. And within the first couple minutes of the fight, I can adjust and realize like, all right, cool. This guy's using the Chiesa game plan. This guy's using the Lorenz Larkin game plan. This guy's using this game plan based off of things that I've seen in myself in film. So for me, it's kind of important to kind of like fill those holes and kind of like. Get better where I'm not making those same mistakes over and over and over, but also being able to react to the kind of fight that my opponent presents me on fight night.
That's awesome, man. Well, can't wait to see it. We got a veteran on Veterans Day weekend. Good luck to you, sir.
Let's go. Cool. Thank you, guys.